You know, most people remember the house they were born in, a little white home, a hospital room, a family waiting outside, a father holding flowers, a mother smiling through tears. But me? I was born behind bars. No balloons, no warm nursery, no proud father pacing the hallway, no grandparents in the waiting room, just steel doors, concrete walls, cold air, heavy footsteps, and the sound of keys. My name is Samuel, and I am 85 years old now. I have lived long enough to see this world change in ways I never thought possible. I have seen men go to the moon. I have seen wars begin and end. I have seen people carry tiny computers in their pockets and call them phones. I have watched this country change its face 100 times. But no matter how old I get, no matter how many years pass, there is one truth that never leaves me. I came into this world in a place built to hold broken people. And somehow, I had to learn how not to become one of them. My mother was 22 years old when she gave birth to me inside a women's correctional facility in the United States. She wasn't a monster. That's the first thing I want to say, because when people hear the word prison, they stop seeing human beings. They start seeing headlines. They start imagining evil. They start thinking in black and white. But life is almost never black and white. My mother was young, angry, poor, and reckless. And back then, this country was not kind to women who had no money, no protection, and no second chance. She got involved with the wrong people, made one desperate choice, then another, and before she even understood the direction her life was moving in, she was locked away. And while she was serving time, she found out she was carrying me. Now here's something a lot of people don't know. In America, women really do give birth while incarcerated. Some prisons have medical units. Some transfer pregnant inmates to hospitals under guard. And in older times especially, the treatment could be deeply cold, mechanical, and humiliating. Some women were even handcuffed during labor. Imagine that. A woman screaming in pain, bringing life into the world, and still treated like she might somehow run away in the middle of childbirth. That tells you something about systems, doesn't it? Sometimes punishment becomes so big, it forgets humanity. Now, I don't remember my birth, of course, but my mother told me pieces of it over the years. And some of those pieces stayed in me like splinters. She said when she first held me, she cried so hard she thought she might choke. Not because she was happy, but because she was ashamed. She looked down at this tiny baby boy, and the first thing she thought was, he deserves a better beginning than this. That sentence haunted her for the rest of her life. And maybe, if I'm honest, it haunted me too. I didn't spend my entire childhood physically inside a prison cell, so let me be truthful about that. But the prison was my beginning, and for a while, it was my world. For the first stretch of my life, I was in a prison nursery unit. Yes, those existed in some places and still do in certain forms. A lot of people don't know that either. Some prisons in America have had special units where incarcerated mothers could keep their babies with them for a limited time. That may sound sweet on paper, and in some moments, maybe it was. But don't romanticize it. A lullaby sounds different when it echoes off concrete. A baby bottle feels different when it's warmed in a place meant for punishment. Even tenderness changes when it has to survive in captivity. I grew up around women who had done hard things, but who still softened when they saw a child. That's one of the first strange truths I learned in life. Even damaged people still know how to love. Not all of them, but more than you'd think. I was held by women with tattoos and tear-stained faces. Women with rough voices and tired eyes. Women who had stolen, lied, fought, smuggled, disappeared, broken trust, broken laws, broken themselves. And yet some of those same women would make funny faces just to make me laugh. One of them used to tap a spoon against the bars and whistle like a bird. Another would hum old church songs. One woman, I'm told, called me Little Sunday because she said my face looked too peaceful for a place like that. Funny, isn't it? How the worst places can still contain little pockets of tenderness. But prison is still prison. And if you've never been inside one, or never lived in the shadow of one, there are things about it that would surprise you. Some things are sad, some are strange, and some are so absurd they almost sound made up. For example, did you know that in many American prisons, inmates count time in tiny rituals that would seem meaningless to outsiders? A spoon, a folded letter, a scratch in the wall, a cup placed in the same exact corner every night. When people lose freedom, routine becomes religion. That's one of the weirdest truths about prison. It can turn the smallest object into emotional survival. A comb becomes identity. A photograph becomes oxygen. A bar of soap becomes treasure. A pen becomes rebellion. And a clock can become torture. Because in prison, time doesn't move like normal time. Out here, life rushes. People complain that the years fly by. In there, 5 minutes can feel like a winter. And one of the strangest prison facts I learned later in life is this. Some inmates become so institutionalized that freedom itself scares them more than confinement. Think about that. A human being can adapt so deeply to control that choice begins to feel dangerous. That's not just a prison lesson, by the way. That's a human lesson. A lot of people outside prison are living the same way. They stay in bad marriages, bad jobs, bad habits, bad identities, not because they love them, but because they've lived inside them too long. Another thing people don't understand about American prisons is how loud loneliness is. People imagine prison as shouting, violence, alarms, banging, chaos. And yes, all of that exists. But some of the most painful prison memories are actually quiet ones. The silence after lights out. The silence after someone receives bad news from home. The silence of a person realizing nobody wrote back. The silence of a birthday nobody remembered. That kind of silence can eat a person alive. And here's another strange prison truth. Mail used to mean everything. Not money, not food, not favors. Mail. A single letter could keep a man alive for a month, and a missing letter could break him. Imagine living in a world where your emotional survival depends on whether someone licked a stamp for you. That's prison. Now, because I was born in that environment, and because my mother later spoke to me honestly about it, I developed a strange curiosity about prison as I got older. I didn't want to become part of it. but I needed to understand it. Because if you are born in darkness, you spend a lot of your life trying to understand the shape of the room. So over the years, I read about prisons, studied them, listened to people, worked around outreach programs, visited facilities, talked to former inmates, even sat across from wardens, guards, chaplains, and men who had spent half their lives locked up. And I learned things that most people never hear. For example, did you know that many prisons have entire invisible economies? I'm not just talking about obvious contraband. I mean real systems of trade. Coffee packets, instant noodles, stamps, socks, toothpaste, peanut butter, even phone time. Inside prison, ordinary things become currency. A soup packet can carry more value than cash. Now, if you've never lived in scarcity, that sounds ridiculous. But if life has ever stripped you down to survival, you understand quickly, value is not about price. It's about need. And prison teaches that brutally. Here's another weird fact. Some inmates become experts in human behavior, not because they studied psychology in college, but because survival inside prison depends on reading people fast. Who's dangerous? Who's bluffing? Who's unstable? Who's lonely? Who's pretending? Who's weak? Who's looking for a fight? Who's looking for a father? Who's looking for someone to use? Prison sharpens perception in terrifying ways. And honestly, some of the best readers of character I've ever met were people who had spent years locked away. Because when your life depends on understanding a face, you learn to listen to what people are not saying. That's a skill I carried with me for life. It helped me in friendships, in business, in marriage, in fatherhood, in survival. Because prison, strange as it sounds, taught me early that charm and goodness are not the same thing. That lesson alone can save a young person 10 years of pain. Here's another thing people don't realize. American prisons run heavily on routine, but emotionally they run on humiliation. That's the part people don't discuss enough. You are told when to wake up, when to stand, when to eat, when to move, when to speak, when to stop speaking, when to shower, when to sit, when to wait, and eventually you stop asking what you want. That's how institutions hollow people out. Not always with beatings, not always with violence, sometimes just with repetition. And that terrified me, because as I grew older, I realized prison doesn't only exist in buildings. Some people carry prison in their minds. Some people are locked inside shame, some inside fear, some inside bitterness, some inside childhood, some inside the opinions of others, some inside one mistake they made 30 years ago, and some never leave, even with the door wide open. My mother left prison eventually, but prison did not fully leave her. That's another truth no one prepares you for. Release is not the same thing as freedom. She came out thinner, quieter, more suspicious of kindness, always watching the room, always sitting near exits, always keeping little things just in case. Even after she was free, she ate like food might disappear, slept lightly, hid money, distrusted comfort. That place had trained her nervous system. And when I was a boy, I didn't understand that. I thought she was just difficult. Later, I understood. Pain leaves habits behind. Now let me tell you one of the strangest things my mother ever said to me. She told me there were women in prison who felt more emotionally seen there than they ever did outside. That bothered me when I first heard it, but then I thought about it. Outside, many of them had been abused, ignored, discarded, manipulated, starved emotionally, used physically, and forgotten socially. Inside prison, for the first time in their lives, somebody at least noticed if they were missing. That's a horrifying fact, isn't it? That a cage can feel more visible than a childhood home. That tells you something deeply broken about society. And another prison fact people don't think about enough is this. Many incarcerated people are emotionally stuck at the age they were first wounded, not the age they were arrested, the age they were broken. That's why some grown men explode like children, why some women manipulate like frightened teenagers, why some people laugh at pain, why some never learn trust, apology, patience, or self-control. Because if trauma interrupts development, the body grows older, but the soul gets trapped. And when I learned that, I stopped looking at people in such simple categories. Bad, good, worthless, hopeless, dangerous, clean, dirty. Life is messier than that. Now, don't misunderstand me. I am not glorifying prison. I am not pretending all criminals are misunderstood poets. Some people are deeply dangerous. Some choices destroy lives. Some harm can never be fully repaired. Truth matters. Victims matter. Consequences matter. But if all you understand is punishment, you will never understand people. And if you never understand people, you will keep rebuilding the same broken world. I think being born where I was born gave me a strange kind of vision. A painful one, but a useful one. It taught me very early that a person can be guilty and still be human. That may be one of the hardest truths in life, and maybe one of the most important. As I got older, I became obsessed with one question. How do you make sure pain does not become your inheritance? Because I was born into confinement, and I could feel the world expecting me to continue the pattern. That's another thing people don't talk about enough. How powerful origin stories can be. If you tell a child long enough that he comes from brokenness, he may begin to think breaking is his destiny. And I refused that. Not immediately, not perfectly, not gracefully. I made mistakes, plenty of them. I had anger. I had shame. I had a deep fear of becoming what I came from. And sometimes that fear made me hard, made me guarded, made me leave people before they could leave me. But somewhere inside me, I had a stubborn little fire. And that fire kept saying, "You are not only where you started." That sentence saved my life. So what did I learn from all of this? At 85 years old, after a lifetime that began in a cell and unfolded into a world far larger than anyone expected, what did I actually learn? I learned first that your beginning is not your verdict. Where you start matters. Of course it matters. Pain matters. Environment matters. Trauma matters. Poverty matters. Neglect matters. But they are influences, not prophecies. And if nobody has ever told you that before, let this old man tell you now. Your first chapter is not your whole book. I learned that people are usually carrying more than they show. The angry person, the cold person, the manipulative person, the difficult person, the distant person, Sometimes they are cruel, yes, but sometimes they are simply still trapped somewhere nobody else can see. That doesn't mean you let harmful people destroy your peace. No, boundaries are wisdom, but understanding people can keep your heart from becoming ugly. I learned that freedom is not just physical. Some of the freest people I ever met had almost nothing. And some of the most imprisoned people I ever met had beautiful homes, expensive watches, polished smiles, and dead eyes. Freedom is not only where your body is. Freedom is whether your soul can breathe. I learned that shame is one of the most dangerous prisons in the world. Because shame doesn't just say, "You made a mistake." It says, "You are the mistake." And if you believe that lie long enough, you will sabotage every beautiful thing life tries to hand you. Please hear me on this. You cannot heal while worshiping your own shame. I learned that routine can either save you or bury you. In prison, routine keeps people sane. Outside prison, routine can quietly become another cage. So ask yourself, is the life you're repeating actually alive? Or are you just serving time in a prettier room? That question changed me, and maybe it should change more people. I learned that mercy is not weakness. That was a hard one, because when you grow up around hardness, you think softness will kill you. But over time, I discovered something else. Mercy is not the absence of truth. It is truth with a heartbeat. And some people survive only because someone, somewhere, refused to reduce them to their worst day. I know I did. And maybe my mother did too. She died many years ago now. But before she died, she told me something I've never forgotten. She said, "Samuel, I gave you a terrible beginning, but you gave that beginning a better ending." I still don't know if I deserve those words, but I carry them, especially on quiet nights, especially when I think about all the people who never got out, not just of prison buildings, but of prison minds. So if you are listening to me today and you feel trapped by your past, trapped by your family, trapped by one decision, trapped by guilt, trapped by who you used to be, then listen carefully. A locked beginning does not require a locked life. You can come from iron and still become gentle. You can come from darkness and still become light. You can come from broken people and still become whole. I am 85 years old. I was born in prison, and somehow I still found a life worth living. If that is possible for me, then maybe, just maybe, it is not too late for you either. Thank you for listening. If this story stayed with you, subscribe. Because some lessons only make sense when they come from someone who has already lived them. And if this reminded you that your past does not own you, leave a "I am still becoming" in the comments.